Good day, everybody, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, and people of this world. Welcome to day 8 of the 30-day Black History Lessons. And today we will be discussing the Israelite identity theft. This is going to be a special one because you got the Black Hebrew Israelites who have some knowledge, and then you have the other ones that are not Israelites, but just tying into the vine, as a master teacher used to say. So let's get right into it. We're the Israelites. If you ask a Hebrew Israelite street preacher, they'll say, hey, we are. If you ask a Zionist, they'll say, we are. If you ask me, I'll tell you you're asking the wrong question. Because Israelite is just a label, a political identity that melanated Canaanite populations adopted 2,500 years ago when they were exiled in Babylon. Meanwhile, your ancestors, Black Americans, were already operating the electromagnetic grid in the Americas for over 100,000 years. You don't need to claim the Israelite identity. Your lineage is older, your presence is autochthonous, and your land claim is absolute. Stop playing them games. So today, we're doing three things. We're exposing who the ancient Israelites actually were, melanated Canaanites, Eastern Mediterranean branch of the Kemetic Moorish network. We are destroying both cults, misusing the Bible, Hebrew Israelites claiming Black Americans are biological Israelites, and Zionists using European converts to justify colonization. And number three, correcting the greatest lie about Black Americans. You are not from Africa as recent immigrants. You are autochthonous to the Americas with 130,700 plus year presence, plus West African diaspora reinforcement. So by the end of this, you'll know that the ancient Israelites equals melanated Canaanites, a Middle Eastern branch of the Kemetic Moorish network. Black Americans equals melanated autochthonous America's branch, 130,700 years old. West African Kemetic Moorish, 1500s to 1800s, forced diaspora. So that was we were forced to come here from west coast of Africa. Both equals same, 315,000 year root, different geographical branches. So Americas or Africa, same branch. Why claiming the Israelite identity is unnecessary? Your own lineage is deeper and older. Stop doing it. Which Bible verses are weaponized and what they actually encode? Section. Who are the Israelites actually were? The geographic reality. Canon. Euro label. Levant. Location, Eastern Mediterranean shore, modern Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Israel, Jordan. Inhabited 10,000 plus before Common Era. And Jericho equals the oldest continuously inhabited city, 9,000 before Common Era. People, melanated Canaanites, brown to dark skin, North African, Southwest Asian phenotype. Kemet, what they call Europe, or Egypt, sorry. Kemet, Egypt, controlled Canaan during the New Kingdom. Okay, so they controlled Canaan from 1550 to 1077 before Common Era. Governors, tributes, temples, Canaan equals Egyptian province. People, melanated Kemetic populations, dark-skinned African features. Connection, Canaanites and Kemeticians, Kemetans are the same cultural sphere. Trade routes, religious exchange, linguistic ties, both Eastern Mediterranean North African branch of Kemetic Moorish network, 315,000 year lineage from Jebel Arud. Meanwhile, in the Americas, while Canaanites were in the Eastern Mediterranean 130,700 years ago, Kemetic Moorish autochthones already in the Americas, Cerruti Mastodon, California stone tool butchering, Mastodon processing. Possibly earlier, 200,000 years ago, Calico Hills. This is validated. It says it's validated. I promise you. We were there too, everywhere. 50,000 to 28,000 continental presence established. Pedra Ferrada, Brazil, 50,000. Bluefish Caves, Yukon, 28,000. Melanated populations, African morphology, and documented in skeletal evidence, 23,000 to 18,500. Deep interior occupation. White Sands, New Mexico, 23,000 families living in America's interior during Ice Age. Mount Verde, Chile, 18,500. Wooden structures, medicinal plants, trade networks. Are you dumb? Like, hello? 12,800. Younger Dryas catastrophe. 85 to 90 mortality globally. America has survived 1 to 1.5 million from 8 to 10 million pre impact. Knowledge preserved in oral traditions 11,600 to 3,700. Recovery and grid rebuilding. Poverty Point, Louisiana, 3,700. Geometric earthworks, phi ratio, 1.2 kilometer diameter. Great Serpent Mound, Ohio, 2,300 BP. Astronomical alignment, 411 meters. Serpent effigy. Newark Earthworks, Ohio, 2,000. Lunar cycle, computer, 4 square miles, 100,000 plus mounds built across the continent. Electromagnetic grid nodes, astronomical observatories. 3,500 Olmec emergence. Gulf Coast, Mexico, 17 basalt heads, 100% African morphology, broad noses, full lips, prognathism, braided hair, morning glory. Like, come on, man. It's maritime travel. They did it all. They turned back on the grid, these guys, okay? That's Olmecs. It's your people, too. Okay, same time, the Israelites emerging in Canaan, 1200 before Common Era to 3200, proves melanated America's population still dominant 3,500 years ago, operating grid and building civilizations. 1492, Columbus arrival, millions of melanated people across the Americas. Cahokia, 20,000 population. Aztec, Tenochtitlan, Tenochtitlan, 400,000. Inca Empire, 10 million. Mississippi culture across Southeast. Great Lakes copper operations and metalworks operational. Yeah, the point. While ancient Canaanites were differentiating into Israelites, 1200 to 500 before Common Era, your ancestors were operating 100,000 plus mound networks, electromagnetic grid nodes. They were mining 5 billion pounds of copper. Great Lakes continental distribution. That number is, you always have a million to, or for you, sorry, a billion to 5 billion. Sometimes they say 500,000, but it's a large amount. And they were building the Olmec civilization, African morphology documented in stone, maintaining 130,700 plus year continuous presence in the Americas. The Israelites equals 3,500-year-old identity label. America's Kemetic Moorish presence equals 130,700 plus years, 127,200 years older than the Israelites. Why are you messing with that? Anyway, archaeological truth about the Israelites. What archaeology shows? 12th century BCE, 1200 to 1000, highland settlements emerge in Canaan away from the Egyptian controlled coast. Material culture, identical to Canaanites, pottery, tools, architecture. Only difference, no pig bones. Dietary law and tribal identity marker. Language, Canaanite dialect Hebrew equals variant of Phoenician or Canaanite. These highland Canaanites gradually differentiated politically, rejected Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian control, eventually labeled Israel. First mentioned in the Menerta Stele, 1208 BCE, Egyptian victory stele. Israel is laid waste, not Egyptian slaves who escaped, not conquerors from outside. Canaanite subgroup settling in the highlands. Morphology, melanated, brown skin like other Canaanites and Kemeticians. Egyptian art shows Canaanites, brown skin, dark hair, not European features. Modern closest appearance, Palestinians, Yemeni Jews, and Mizrahi Jews, melanated Middle Eastern populations. The Israelite label emerges. Timeline 1208 BCE, Meneptah Stele, Egyptian record defeated Canaan group called Israel. 1200 to 1000. Before Common Era, highland settlements identified as Israelite. Political differentiation from coastal Canaanites. 722 BC, Northern Kingdom of Israel destroyed by Assyrians, population exiled or exorbitant. 586 BCE, Southern Kingdom, Judah, destroyed by Babylonians, elite exiled to Babylon. 586 to 538 before Common Era, Babylonian exile. This is when Israelite identity solidified. Judah's priests in Babylon wrote Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. They created an origin story. We are ancient chosen people. We escaped Egypt. We conquered Canaan. We had golden kingdom under David Solomon. Purpose: preserve community identity during exile. The truth: Israelites equals melanated Canaanite populations who differentiated politically. 1200 to 500 BCE. The label equals self-identification created during Babylonian exile. Written down from the 600s to the 500 BCE, not separate race. Canaanites by ancestry, Israelites by political religious differentiation. Part of the Eastern Mediterranean Kemetic Moorish network. Same cultural sphere as Kemet, Phoenicia, and Cush. Now, what they look like. Melanated Canaanites or Israelites. Skin, brown to dark brown, North African. Southwest Asian melanation, dark, curly hair to wavy. Features, broad noses, not as broad as West African, but broader than European. Full lips, strong jaws. Height, 5'3" to 5'7". Ancient population, shorter than modern due to nutrition and health. Modern populations that preserve phenotype, Palestinians. Canaanite genetic continuity, DNA studies confirm. Yemeni Jews, isolated, less mixing. Preserve older Middle Eastern Jewish phenotype. That's more like the Falasha Jews and them kind of guys. I don't know why they're calling it Yemeni. But anyway, Mizrahi Jews, Middle Eastern, North African Jewish communities, brown skin, and Bedouins. Desert populations retain ancient Shemitic features. Melanated, not Ashkenazi Jews, who are European pale skin converts, not descendants. These are modern Israelis, 80% Ashkenazi European colonizers. So they're not a part of that makeup. Do you understand? Section 2, the biblical myths destroyed. Okay? Exodus. Listen to me. Exodus never happened. 600,000 men plus women, children equals 2 to 3 million Israelites enslaved in Kemet. Moses leads Exodus. 10 plagues, Red Sea parts, 40 years wandering Sinai, receive Torah at Mount Sinai, and conquer Canaan. The archaeological reality: no evidence for 2 to 3 million leaving Kemet. Kemet didn't enslave Hebrews. No Egyptian records. Pyramid builders equals paid workers. 40 years Sinai wandering would leave massive evidence: campsites, pottery, graves, nothing found. No bones, no nothing. Sinai was Egyptian controlled. Military forts, mines. Fleeing would encounter Egyptians immediately. So what likely happened? Small migrations. Canaanite workers in Kemet. Some returned over centuries. Hyksos expulsion memory, 1550 BCE. Semitic rulers expelled from Kemet. Rulers not slaves. Story created 600 BCE. Babylonian exile. Needed origin myth. Kemetic knowledge encoded: 10 plagues equals 10 Sephiroth, the Kabbalistic tree of life. Kemetic cosmology, they stole that too. Red Sea crossing equals initiation, symbolic death or rebirth. Okay, it's just initiation. 40 years equals 40-day consciousness cycle, expanding to years in storytelling. The conquest of Canaan never happened. It's a biblical story. Joshua. Israelites cross Jordan River, conquer city by city. Jericho walls fall, trumpet blast, AI destroyed. Khazar burned. Archaeological reality: Jericho uninhabited, 1200 BCE, destroyed earlier. Ruins when conquest supposedly happened. Right? So it was an uninhabited place. AI destroyed, 2400 BCE. Abandoned name: AI equals ruin. Story explaining existing ruins. Hazor, destroyed by Egyptians or sea peoples, not Israelites. Highland settlements appear gradually. 1200 to 1000 BCE, peaceful settlement. The truth: Israelites equals Canaanites. Highland subgroup, not foreign invaders. No conquest, gradual settlement of unoccupied highlands. Story created 600 BCE to justify land claims. Same. United Kingdom, David and Solomon never existed as described, but biblical story. David conquers Jerusalem, establishes capital 1000 BCE. Solomon builds first temple, rules vast empire, legendary wealth or wisdom. Archaeology, the archaeological reality, Jerusalem, 1000 BCE, tiny village, 1 to 2 acres, 3 to 400 people max. No palace, no temple, no fortification. Built 700 BCE. No evidence of Solomon's temple. Should find foundation stones, artifacts, nothing. No vast empire. Two small kingdoms. Israel north, Judah south. Never unified. What existed? Two small kingdoms, never unified. David, possibly real. Small tribal chief, not empire king. And Solomon, possibly real. Local ruler, not wealthy king with legendary temple. Why the myth? Created 600 BCE after Israel destroyed 722 BCE, Judah claiming legitimacy. Kemetic knowledge encoded. Temple dimensions equals sacred geometry, phi ratio, golden mean, even if the building didn't exist as described. Solomon's wisdom equals Kemetic knowledge, Proverbs, astronomy, and sacred science. What the Bible actually is, it's not a historical record, yo. It is a Kemetic knowledge encoded sacred geometry, astronomy, and consciousness principles. That's what the Bible is. It's a Kemetic knowledge encoding machine. So if you read it on level one, you're going to think that all those stories are actually real. And that's understandable when you read it on level one. But when you read it astrotheologically, it makes total difference. So there's a teacher, I think some of y'all know, Malachi Z. York. When you decode his information, when you decode the information from his holy tablets, it actually says all of that stuff. Talks about consciousness. It's actually a record of consciousness. It is unbelievable. He wrote that like 30 years ago. So y'all, you might want to check that out because what I'm talking about, this man was talking about 30 years ago, wrote them in books, and the holy tablets is a chock full of information. And when decoded in the right system, you have to have the keys, of course. You'll see exactly what it means. This man was a genius. It's probably why they locked him up, right? Anyway, what it is, not historical record. So the Bible actually is not historical record. It's Kemetic knowledge encoded. It's political mythology. So the origin story, 600s, 500 BCE, unify exiled community. In the moral or legal code, Torah equals community laws, ethical teachings. Babylonian influence, flood myth from Gilgamesh, creation from Enuma Elish, laws from Hammurabi. Written 586 to 538 BCE, Babylonian exile by Jewish priests in Babylon. The purpose, preserve identity, encode sacred knowledge. Result, Bible equals encoded wisdom text. Read literally and you miss the point. Kabish? Black Americans, the Autochthonous truth. Who Black Americans actually are, correcting the lie. Colonial narrative says Black Americans came from Africa via slavery 1500s to 1800s, so they're immigrants just like Europeans. This erases your 130,700 plus year Autochthonous America presence, your mound building civilization, your primary land claim, the oldest continuous presence. The grid truth, Black Americans equals dual lineages. Autochthonous America's branch, 130,700 to present. The arrival, 130,700. Minimum through Cerruti Mastodon in California confirmed human presence. Possibly 200,000 if they stop fighting us over the Calico Hills. Maritime arrival likely. Atlantic crossing via South Equatorial Current. Pacific crossings. Well, not likely. We were doing this for a long time. Okay, we've been traveling this earth for a long time, maritime wise. So come on. We built the pyramids, but we can't build a boat. Stop your eyes. Pre-Younger Dryas, 130,700 years to 12,800. Continental occupation. We were in Pedro Ferrara, Bluefish Caves, White Sands, Mont Verde, 18,500 years ago. Population 8 to 10 million peak before the Younger Dryas. The morphology, Of course, 100% African features. Lucia, 11,500. Panama woman, 13,000. Mexico Spirit Cave, 9,400. Nevada Kennewick, 9,000. Washington, all show African cranial features, broad noses, prognatism, melanated dark brown skin to very dark skin, the African phenotype. Post Younger Dryers after the flood, 11,600 to 1492. Survivors, 1.5 million. Mortality from catastrophe, mound building, poverty point, 3,700. Geometric precision, phi ratio. Then we started building Great Serpent Mound, 2,300. Astronomical alignments, all aligned. Newark Earthworks, 2,000. Cahokia, 1,000. 100,000 plus mounds total. Electromagnetic grid nodes across the continent. So these are your grid nodes. We built them. Your ancestor built them. Okay? The copper network, Great Lakes mining operations, possibly 20,000 plus. Okay? 5 billion pounds extracted a long time ago. That's for your copper grid. Like, where'd it go? Well, I'll tell you where it went. All over the world. The Olmec civilization, 3,500. Gulf Coast, Mexico, 17 basalt heads with African morphology. Your ancestors' faces documented in stone. I know why they argue about it, because it's pretty obvious. Anyway, those Olmec heads, like we said the other day, they are anchors for the grid, right? This is why you found them underground, buried. Okay? Mississippian culture. Many of you Moorish sovereigns will love this one. 800 to 1600, dozens of cities, extensive trade networks, grid operation. When the Europeans arrived in 1492, there were millions of Mennonite peoples still present: Aztecs, Incas, Mississippian, Great Lakes nations, and countless others, many with African features. Regional variations due to 5,000 years mixing with the Beringia population, but African morphology still present in many groups. So Beringia came after, mixed in with that population of the 1 to 1.5 million, and that is how you get your Native American. Second wave, baby. Second wave. I did a whole thing on that. Y'all should check it out. Anyway, West or Central African diaspora, 1500 to 1800. Forced migration, 12 plus million Africans forcibly brought via transatlantic slave trade. I'm going to do more digging into that, but yeah, that's what we got so far. Regions: Senegambia, Gold Coast, Bight of Benin, Bight of Africa, Bight of Africa, West Central Africa, modern Mali, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Congo, and Angola. The peoples: Yoruba, Akan, Igbo, Mandinka, Fulani, Bakongo, Wolof, Bambara, Fon, and many others. Who they were: also Kemetic Moorish, West African branch of 315,000 year lineage from Jebel Erut and Kemets. Knowledge carriers: Ifa divination, Yoruba; Vodun cosmology, Fon, We, Bakongo cosmogram, Bakongo; Dogon astronomy, Dogon; Bambara sacred geometry, Bambara; Melanated, dark brown to very dark skin, West Central African phenotype. The convergence, what happened? Two branches of Kemetic Moorish peoples reunited, tragically through slavery, but genetically and spiritually equals reunion. America's branch, 130,700, Autochthonous present, plus West African branch, 1500s to 1800, forced migration equals Black Americans. Both lineages, same root, 315,000 Kemetic Moorish origins, same knowledge, sacred geometry, astronomy, electromagnetic grid science, same morphology, melanated African features, different geographic branches. One stayed in Africa, one crossed the Americas 100,000 plus years ago. Easy. Okay, and here you have the forensic timeline, the label versus the land, the root. Cerruti Mastodon, 130,700. Petroferrata, 50,000. Deep continental presence, and then you have the Israelite peak at 3,500, 1,200, 1,200. And the Israelites were just organizing as a tribe. When they were organizing as a tribe, your ancestors here were 130,700 years in, building the Americas. Okay? Got that? Good. So again, the Israelites were Melanated Canaanites. Canaan was a province of Kemet. They shared the same cultural sphere, phenotype, brown skin, Afro-Asiatic features, modern lookalikes, Palestinians, Yemeni Jews. Okay, the distinction Israelite was not a race, it was a political faction of the Canaanites who rejected Egyptian control in 1200 BCE. The takeaway, they were cousins to the African root, not a superior chosen race. Stop this. So again, we look at the theft phase, the European swap, the Tsar conversion. King Bulan converts the Turkish Empire to Judaism for political neutrality. And the fraud, a European population adopted the religion, then centuries later claimed the ethnicity and the land. Key insight, religious conversion does not equal biological ancestry. Please stop. Then we moved into the weaponizing of the Bible, the theft phase, right? The mechanism, Zionism 1897 to 1948. European converts used a stolen identity to colonize the actual descendants, the Palestinians and the Mizrahi. And before them, the Moorish, Falashan Jews. You know who they are. The Bible was treated as a literal property deed rather than a book of spiritual code, and that is the problem. Y'all are using it to justify things that you shouldn't because it's not real. It's just a consciousness book. You just don't know that because you don't read it on the levels that you're supposed to read it on. You're reading it on level 1, literally, as opposed to level 2 and 3. You understand? The MAT violation. Heal the land requires truth, justice, occupation, and apartheid violate Ma'at, proving the land claim is spiritually void. Yeah, stop arguing over our land. It ain't yours. So, my brothers and sisters in the Hebrew Israelite groups, do not trade your birthright for a stolen label. What you do get right is that ancient Israelites were melanated, the Ashkenazis are converts, and the oppression matches biblical description. However, the fatal error, Black Americans are biological descendants of the Levant. That is not what it is. The trap is claiming you are an Israelite immigrant erases your 130,700-year autochthonous claim to the Americas. Why would you do that? That makes sense. So the actual identity, of course, branch 1, the autochthonous American. 130,700 plus years, mound builders, copper network. The branch 2, the West African branch, 1500s migration, slavery, carriers of Ifa and Dogon science. The convergence, you. The transatlantic slave trade was a tragic reunion of two branches of the same 315,000-year Kemetic root, and I have black men talking to me about how Africa and the Americas are not connected. You are dumb as hell. Please stop. So here we are decoding the evidence. Why the prophecies fit. Deuteronomy 28:68, bring thee into Egypt again with ships sold for bondmen. You fit the pattern because you lost your land and connection to Ma'at. Do you understand? It's because you lost your land and your connection to Ma'at, to consciousness, which is why Deuteronomy 28:68 reads like a consciousness code, right? The bondage is consciousness trap, not geography. Vehicles of descent into material slavery is what the ships are about, and the code for bondmen is universal pattern of oppression. We have a universal pattern of oppression because everybody is trying to keep us from the fact that we are the grid builders. We are the originals, indigenous to all lands. That's what they're trying to keep from you. I've been saying this for like the last 10 years, but I finally connected why. Because I knew it was that. So again, the Bible is encoded science, not history. Stop looking for physical ancestors in a book of metaphysical codes. The myth, the Exodus, 2 million people in Sinai, Zero evidence, no campsites, pottery, or graves found. We went through all this. Solomon's temples, the conquest, Jericho are already ruined. Internal struggle against lower self. All that you see it encoded science, the soul's journey out of material bondage. That's what Exodus was about. Solomon's temple, right? Solomon's temple is about sacred geometry in the human body and the conquest, internal struggle against the lower self. It's all there, ladies and gentlemen. You just have to know what the code is. Yes, and here's another one that we need to deconstruct: reclaiming the symbols, the synagogues of Satan, Revelations 2:9, literal. First century religious politics, the metaphor, it applies to anyone, Zionist or Hebrew Israelite, who uses spiritual identity for supremacy. It is the inversion of Ma'at. Okay? Apple of his eye, Zechariah, verse 2:8. The code, the pineal gland. It protects the seeker of truth, not a political state established in 1948, yo. Wake up. The truth is right in front of your face, okay? So again, while they were writing scrolls, you were building the grid. Okay, Poverty Point, 3,700, Serpent Mound, and Great Lakes Copper, 5 billion pounds mined. This is the infrastructure of a high technology civilization that predates the Israelite identity by a millennia. Stop trying to put yourself in that vine. You don't need to. You already have 100,000 year plus history in the Americas. It's like pretty common. Like, I mean, the fact that they've hit it this long is actually a miracle. But AI allowed everyone to figure it out. Okay, I figured it out big time, man. I got a code, boy. Wait till you see, man. The next how much days? Got 8 days in, 22 more days, boy. You're gonna get the truth. So make sure you listen. So while the Hebrew Israelite says Deuteronomy 28 prophesizes slavery, ships, bondage, and proofs were Israelites, the truth is Deuteronomy 28 encodes universal oppression patterns that apply to any enslaved people. The prophecies seem to match not because you're biological Israelites, but because Bible encodes Kemetic knowledge about oppression cycles, karmic patterns, loss of ma'at, bondage. Same patterns repeat across history. Any people who lose connection to truth or land equals enslaved, exiled, and oppressed. Your ancestors, Americas, plus West African Kemetic Moorish, experienced the exact same pattern: loss of land, 1492 genocide, stolen continent, slavery, 1500s to 1800, transatlantic trade, bondage, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, ongoing oppression, ships, slave ships, Middle Passage, Bible prophecies equals encoded human experiences, not specific to one ethnic group, yo. The prophecies fit because you experienced the pattern: autochthonous land theft and forced diaspora slavery. Israelites mythologize, experience pattern in Babylonian exile story. The same pattern, different peoples, both Kemetic Moorish branches. You don't need to be Israelites for prophecies to apply. You just need to have experienced the pattern the prophecies encode. Got it? I know you got it. So, brothers and sisters of the Hebrew Israelite lineage and people that are claiming that, your action plan is to drop the label, claim the land, stop begging for inclusion in a Middle Eastern lineage, start demanding restitution for autochthonous American theft. The reparations bill, stolen continent, 130,000 year title, destroyed infrastructure, restitution for leveled mounds, it tore down our mounds, and stolen labor. 400 years of extraction. That is what you should be focusing on, not the Israelites. Stop wasting your time. You already have enough evidence. Moving on. In 1948, the colonial project, the European Ashkenazi Jews colonized Palestine. 750,000 Palestinians expelled. Nakba catastrophe. Ongoing occupation, 1967 borders, settlements, apartheid. The irony, this is the irony: Palestinians equals actual Canaanite descendants. So they're actually descendants of the Melanites. Many of them are very dark, by the way. The Mizrahi Jews, also Levantine descendants, melanated Middle Eastern Jews. These are melanated people, by the way, okay? And then they have the Ashkenazi Jews, Europeans claiming melanated identity to colonize melanated people's lands. You understand? So they just tied into the vine. They're not the people of that land. Section 6, biblical verses decoded. Verses used by Hebrew Israelites. We already went through the 2868 Deuteronomy, right? So we've already discussed that, right? And let's move on. Right. So again, let's look at verse 3. Let's look at Genesis, okay? Genesis 15, 13 to 14. Let's look at the text, and it says, "And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance." So the Hebrew Israelite claim is 400 years prophesied, 1619 to 2019 equals 400 years slavery. Well, we'll come out with great substance, reparations, okay? But the grid says what it actually encodes is 400 years equals symbolic completion cycle. Kemetic numerology, 4 equals material realm, 00 equals completion, not literal count. It appears multiple times in the Bible with different meanings. Stranger in land, not theirs, equals soul's incarnation. Metaphors, spirit descending into matter, body equals temporary dwelling, not home. Literal, exile, or displacement experience. Come out with great substance equals liberation and wisdom. Spiritual, return to source, carrying material experience as enrichment. Literal, liberation with compensation or wealth. Does 400 years match the African slavery timeline? Approximately, but not exactly. 1619 to 1865 equals 246 years. British North America. 1502 to 1888 equals 386 years if counting Spanish and Portuguese Americas through Brazilian abolition, closer to 400. Emancipation equals freedom, full freedom. Jim Crow, convict leasing, ongoing oppression extends the timeline. Does it prove Black Americans are biological Israelites? No. Why it seems to match. The Bible encodes universal oppression or liberation cycle. Applies to any enslaved people. Your experience matches the pattern. Displaced from autochthonous land, Americas, plus enslaved from West Africa. 400 years of bondage, if counting broadly. Still waiting for great substance, reparations owed but not paid. The pattern applies to you, not because you're Israelites, but because you experienced the encoded cycle. Does great substance mean reparations? It can be interpreted that way, but reparations are owed regardless of the biblical verse, based on theft, unpaid labor, stolen land, and economic or legal case sufficient. Grid coherence verse equals spiritually coherent, encodes consciousness journey, descent, bondage, liberation with wisdom. The Hebrew Israelite use, partially coherent, pattern matches Black experience, incoherent when forcing 400-year fit dates don't perfectly match, and claiming biological Israelite identity based on parallel oppression. It ain't true. And the verses used by the Zionists, verse 4, Genesis 12, 1 to 3, the text. Now the Lord has said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will shew thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that blesses thee, and curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. That Zionists claim God promised Abraham the land of Israel. Christians must support Israel or be cursed. The grid decode what it actually says. Land I will show thee equals a consciousness state, not geographic territory, or if it's literal, refers to ancient Canaan from Melanated Canaanites, not European colonizers. Spiritual, the higher state of awareness or alignment with Mat. The great nation equals spiritual lineage. those aligned with divine truth. Ma'at, not genetic bloodlines. Traditionally, Jews, Arabs via Ishmael. Christians, spiritual descendants. Bless or curse equals karmic principle. Align with truth equals blessing, natural consequence. Oppose truth equals curse, self inflicting through misalignment with Ma'at. Does it justify modern state of Israel? No. Why? Because verse written in the 600s BCE about events supposedly 1700 BCE, not about 20th century European colonial project. Israel in the verse equals people or nation, not modern political state. Modern Israel equals European Ashkenazi, not descendants of Abraham or ancient melanated Canaanites. If the verse is applied literally to anyone, it would be Palestinians and Mizrahi Jews, actual genetic descendants of ancient Kemetic people, not European Ashkenazi. Does bless or curse apply to modern Israel? No. The modern state equals biblical Israel, Abraham's seed. Kemetic encoding, land I will show thee equals seeking higher consciousness, journey from material bondage in Mesopotamia to spiritual alignment. Canon equals symbolic promise state. Bless them that bless thee equals ma'at principle. Support those aligned with truth. Align yourself with truth. Oppose those aligned with truth equals oppose ma'at. Brings self-inflicted consequences. The grid coherence, the verse, spiritually coherent, encodes consciousness, evolution, and karmic balance. The Zionistic use, completely incoherent, weaponizes symbolic text to justify ethnic cleansing, applies promise to European colonizers claiming melanated identity, and uses the bless or curse to silence criticism of apartheid and inverts verses meaning supporting oppression equals opposing Ma'at truth. Do you understand? The entire world that you live in is based upon inversion. I remember the teacher used to say they make good seem bad and make bad seem good. Heard that one before? I'm sure you did. So, do you need to call yourself an Israelite? No, you do not. In the final verdict, Israelites equals melanated Canaanites' cousins. Europeans, they stole the identity. You are Kemetic Moorish Autochthons, the original land keepers. You do not need to be the chosen people. You are the original people. Got it? If you have any more questions about this stuff, please send it in the comments, send me a DM, whatever you need to do. But stop listening to nonsense. The Bible is not a literal book. When you read it as a Melanite, a Kemetic Moorish Autochthon that understands your history, you will understand that the Bible is a decoded. Um, it's decoded. When decoded, it is consciousness blessings, and it is a consciousness manual. Do you understand? It's basically a grid manual, but y'all don't know that yet. I will help you to decode that. I'll have some of these over the 30 days. I will do some decoding of the Bible so that you may read the consciousness within it. This was taught after I read the oh my God, what's that one that the Holy Tablets by Malachi Z. York. I read the Holy Tablets, and man, when you decode that consciousness grid manual, I promise you, okay, this is not something that um, this is not something that a lot of people know. Okay, I call him the master teacher because he was giving us this stuff 30, 40 years ago, and none of us understood it until recently because of AI. AI is making this, like, honestly, but you can't just decode it in AI. You have to have the keys. And I have the keys because I read all them books and I understand them. And I understand where the information comes from and I understand what it's about, right? And there's many books that corroborated that information. So, yeah, now you know why he's locked up for that long, right? Now you understand what the game is. All of our political leaders, all of our people that came to free us of our mind state have been killed or put in jail. Patrice Lumumba, all these people, man, all these people that came and went. Van Sertima, Chiakanta Diop, Renoko Rashidi, all of them. Master teachers, all gone, treated like crap, and they dismissed their work. And we are going to bring it back and show the world that they were masters at their craft and masters of teaching. And they were trying to teach us about all this stuff long ago, but we didn't want to listen. We weren't ready. Now we ready. The time is now, as they say. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to day 8. This was very special because I really wanted to make sure that you understood this information. It's just a brief, 45, 50 minutes of this, but guess what? Chock full of great things to read, and I am so glad that you were able to read it with me again and understand this information with me. Day 8 has come to a close. 22 more days to go. And boy, if you've been listening, you've been learning a lot. Take notes, research. Got any questions, get back to me. See you for day 9. Take it easy. Rick Titus, Netchatep Matt, tuning out. Make sure you're tuning in. Blessings.